Hey everyone. So, right out of the gate, Oda drops a huge bombshell on us that Davy D. Jones was actually the previous king of the world before he was basically deposed by Emu and the world government, and they themselves had become the ruling power. Now, this to me answers a singular question, but raises so many more, which is to say, I think we now know that the D or a faction of them at this point were basically the royalty that ruled like during the time of the Void Century. And I think it's fair to wager the island that sank beneath the waves was at the time the royal capital of the world. Now, in saying that, my question is simply this. Where do the other Ds fit into this picture? Because if the Davy clan were the ruling royal family at the time, does that mean that all others were just factions of the royal family? Because the way I'm reading this chapter, it sounds like all who carry the name of D, even in the modern day, are in some form or another descended from the pretty much Davy clan just by virtue of the Davy clan. In essence, I guess you see it like being the original, like the first clan in order to wield the name D. And if that is the case, then it's actually starting to make sense why Emu and the government fears any of those who carry the letter D in their name, because they fear anyone with the name of D are those who carry the royal blood of the true royalty in their veins. A royal family that, ironically, being rulers of the world, are considered enemies of God. Like just basically just having those two things parallel each other is there's a weird poetic irony in all that. Now, I guess the big question I have now is whether or not like even Dragon is aware of this lineage. Like Luffy himself wouldn't give a flying fuck who he's descended from, but it's when you add Dragon into the picture where things get interesting, because, well, I'm not going to say he needed a deeper meaning other than the events of God Valley to become this figurehead of revolution. It would still be interesting if he still discovered the connection along the way, and it fueled him even more in order to become the man the mastermind behind the revolutionary army that he is. Um, Also, the other thing is, this has me wondering what the connection between Joy Boy and the Davy Clan is. Like, because at best, it's feeling more like this is feeding into the idea that the first Joy Boy was also a member of the Davy Clan. Like, with the Davy Clan being the original royalty, it would almost make sense that pretty much the first Joy Boy would also be the one who would basically outright oppose the government as well. Um, because that would, and it would just kind of all add up even more as like the first, and the first of the Davy clan being the one to rebel was also the first Joy Boy in a way. Um, Now, with that said, the end of the chapter sees the setup for the final penultimate battle we've heard so much about up to this point, of Rocks going up against Roger and Garp. And like so many things with One Piece, what seems like an epic clash on the surface had an undercurrent of tragedy, as this fight was not determined by strength, but by attrition. The basic desire to survive, not to determine who's the strongest, like probably Roger and Rocks probably would have liked it to be, but but it was just a means in order to survive. And one detail I love right out of the gate with this is that is when you see Rocks just like, I guess, telepathically communicate with Roger and Garp to say, please kill me. I don't want to be this man. I don't want to live like this anymore. Please offer me this kindness and mercy. Kill me now, please. Like I do like how we are, how even while becoming this monster, that there's still the humanity screaming out, wanting to be free, and the funny thing is, this fight is still in a lot of ways a perfect example of kind of what Doflamingo, I think, set up Marineford, and how, in the same vein as his speech about the victors becoming justice, this whole like this whole era-defining event on God Valley can be summed up as history is written by the victors. So so in a way, no matter the context of how it happened, Roger and Garp killing Rocks on this very battleground had set them on the path to become the legends that they would become much later in the series. But simultaneously, Rocks' death also secured the world government's position as the Davy Clan is nearly wiped out in the as the Davy Clan is wiped out in the present, with Teach being technically the only one left of the Davy Clan. Although again, it's still kind of not clear as to where all the other Ds fit into this. Now, I also failed to mention this last chapter, but now that we see what happened to Rocks being possessed by Emu, the chapter pretty much confirms that what happened all those years ago on Elbaf as well, which is to say, Emu did exactly the same thing to Harald that he did to Rocks. Emu possessed him and forced him to kill his own people. So Loki, in a sense of the word, is... I'm not going to say innocent, but he definitely... But I would almost wager a bet that if we were to get a look into the view of what happened that day on Elbaf, where Loki killed his father, I bet we'd get the exact same scenario of Harald like reaching out to Loki, like telepathically communicating with him in a way, and begging him in order to kill, begging Loki to kill him because he didn't want to be this monster that would destroy his own country. Like I get the thought that that's kind of what happened. So it's like it's more of an assisted suicide situation. That like so in a sense, like Loki still killed his father, but his hand was forced by Emu to cut Harald down. So knowing all this, like one thing that needs to happen for me in the present timeline is, regardless of how it's done, Loki needs to be the one to get justice for Harald. He has to be the one to land the quote-unquote kill shot. The one that it's not gonna kill Emu, obviously, because he's still the main villain and he's gonna be here until the end. But Loki needs to have that moment that'll drive Emu off of Elbaf and to show that he is still worthy of being king, even despite his transgression of basically killing Harald. Like that to me, I think is most important now, with knowing very likely how that went down. Admittedly though, the one thing I was kind of shocked by with this chapter was seeing that Kuma being the one to save both Eris and Teach. Like, I was almost certain Oda was setting her up to die at the hands of Rocks, but now that she was teleported away, I guess we can assume she died of unknown causes while raising Teach. I guess we don't know where they ended up after they were teleported, but with both mother and son getting teleported off the island, and it definitely not being the route I was expecting to go with, and it definitely not being the route I was expecting to go there, is my best guess on what happened after that is my best guess on what was going to happen is that Eris was going to die at the hands of Rocks, and then Kuma steps in to save Teach. So the fact that Oda completely subverted even that is a little surprising, because the man loves a good tragedy. Let's be honest. The man loves putting tragic twists on a lot of story beats, and I thought this would be one that he especially did. So the fact that he didn't go that route, it makes me wonder why. And maybe it's one of those things where Oda's feeding into the idea that maybe the real tragedy here is that knowing, despite both mother and son surviving and making it off the island safely, it's still an inevitability that Teach is going to end up alone. And I'm not going to lie, this chapter and backstory as a whole does make me reevaluate Teach's actions even more than I have before, and how, well, I'm not going to excuse anything Teach has done necessarily up to this point, it also feels like, intentionally or not, he is following his father's path, yet still and yet even despite doing that, he's doing it on his own terms, and even though in some ways he might be intentionally or unintentionally following his father's path, it also feels like even though he's bound by his own blood, he's also still trying to break free of it as well. So, like, overall, like, it's going to be interesting. I think one thing that is going to be interesting to follow going forward is to see what Oda does with Teach's character beyond this point, given all of this context we've basically learned about what happened on God Valley for sure. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much all I got for this review. If you enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe. If you want Blue Sky, Analyst Crunchyroll, be sure to push the bell, hit the subscribe button, and share everyone, guys. Dark Knight of Infinity signing off. Later, everyone.